Hi everyone, it's Miss Tina again. I'm here again this week to continue to talk about our theme for this month, which is Unstuck, Don't Give Up. We've been talking a lot about the days and weeks just after Jesus's resurrection and then his ascension to heaven. And this story is another story about those times. Basically, our story today is about Philip and the man from Ethiopia, and this is a story from Acts chapter 8, verses 26 through 40. And he was a man who was chosen by the disciples to be a leader to help the people who had come over to the Christian faith, who they had brought over, to make sure that they were taken care of if they needed food or special care. Stephen, who we talked about last week, was also part of this group of men who were given these responsibilities, and he was tragically killed for his beliefs by the religious leaders led by Saul, who will become a more important figure in weeks to come. So they were basically, especially Saul, he was going down and hunting people, basically, who followed Jesus. But Philip was a man who, after Stephen was killed, they all sort of started scattering. They wanted to kind of stay low because of Saul and his group that were hunting down the people. And as they left, they went to different places, but they continued to tell the story of Jesus and try to bring people over to the faith. And Philip was basically, he was traveling down the road one day in a town in Samaria, and an angel appeared to him and said, basically, you need to go here. He gave him instructions and told him exact roads to go on. And so Philip, thinking, well, it's an angel. What can you do about that? I mean, an angel tells you to take these roads, you're going to do it. So he started out and he met an Ethiopian official who had traveled all the way to Jerusalem to worship God and was now on his way home. And as the official sat in his chariot, he was reading scriptures that were written by Isaiah. And the Holy Spirit told Philip to catch up to the chariot and stay near it. And Philip then asked the man if he understood what he was reading. And the Ethiopian said he needed someone to help explain it to him because he did not, in fact, understand. And he invited Philip to sit with him. So they began talking, and Philip was able to answer questions for him and fill him in on all of the good news about Jesus. And they talked for a long time and went over all of his questions that he had. And then they happened to come upon some water. And the Ethiopian official gave the order to stop the chariot and had Philip baptize him in that water. So when they came out of the water, then God's Spirit took Philip away. And the Ethiopian didn't see Philip again, but he went on his way full of joy. And all of his questions were basically answered. And so Philip continued to travel around and tell people about Jesus even after this. So wrapping up the story, basically, both Philip and the Ethiopian official continued to be faithful even when they had questions. I mean, at first, Philip was kind of wondering, why would the angel send me on these paths? What is this purpose? What is this for? But then he soon realized exactly why he was there, which was to help the Ethiopian to understand. And then the official, the Ethiopian, he had questions and he searched out ways to understand more about God. And these men both didn't have all the answers, but they kept going. They asked questions, and in the end, they understood much more because of the questions that they asked and the explanations that were given. So the story of Jesus continued to be spread because of determination in many different ways. And our basic truth for the month, and especially this week, is I need to make the wise choice. And I think that that's really important to think about when we're going forward with what's happening in our lives right now, and also in our faith with Jesus, asking questions to understand more, you realizing that no one, not me, not Reverend Carrie, and not anyone really has all of the answers, but asking questions is a good thing. And we have to believe that God does know all of the answers. So we just have to have faith in God that he will continue to show us towards the answers that we are asking, or answers to the questions that we are asking, excuse me. In addition to the activities that are on those parent cue sheets that I put on Facebook, one thing that I think would be really fun is to play 20 questions. So kids, you can do this with your parents or with a brother or sister. Come up with an object, an animal, anything that you can think of, and then the other person has to guess what you're trying to think of. And so they have to ask questions in order to start to understand and maybe figure out what you're thinking of. And so that can be a really fun activity to kind of go along with this. And all I want to really say is just that, and when you're talking with the kids and when you're doing these activities, you might want to ask them certain questions, like, why is it important to ask questions? What happens if we don't understand and we don't ask questions? What happens then? When is it hard to ask questions? And then, are there questions that don't have answers? Which certainly I've run into those from time to time. So encourage the kids to think of examples of all of these things. And then also, it's a great way to kind of go over any questions that they might have about these stories that we've talked about the last few weeks, and about the resurrection, the crucifixion, all of those things. Which I'm sure that a lot of kids, including my own, have questions about often. So anyways, those are all of the things that I think that we can do this week. And next week we'll be starting, probably we're going to be starting with a new unit, a new curriculum for the month. And we're also going to be exploring some of the fun things that we usually do during the summer, maybe later in June, when you have Sunday school during the summer, which is a lot of crafts and fun things that we can do with stories. So anyways, have a good week. Have a nice time with the weather. I know it's not going to be as hot as it was last weekend, but it's going to be sunny and beautiful and almost June. So thanks again. Bye.